Welcome to Playback with another episode of history. When you think of the Sahara, you probably picture this: a huge, hostile ocean of sand, a place where life just seems impossible. But what if I told you that what we see today is just a temporary illusion? Because believe it or not, deep in the absolute driest parts of this desert, the ancient rocks tell a totally different story. They're literally covered in paintings of people swimming. No, they're not dreaming, they're not hallucinating. They are swimming. It's one of the first clues to a lost world, one that's been hiding right under all this sand. All right, let's just dive right into this, because this isn't some fantasy novel. Just 8,000 years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert at all. It was an Eden. We're talking about a massive network of enormous lakes and lush grasslands just teeming with life you would never, ever imagine finding there today. Now, this incredible phenomenon actually has a name. And in this explainer, we are going to break down the mechanics behind this absolutely massive transformation. We're going to follow the people who lived through it, and we'll even uncover how the end of their paradise may have sparked the beginning of one of history's greatest empires. So scientists call it the African Humid Period. We tend to think of the world map as this permanent, fixed thing. But this period just proves how dynamic the Earth really is. It's always changing. And the evidence for this lost, wet world, it's completely overwhelming, literally fossilized right there in the sand. I mean, the sheer variety of proof is just staggering. For example, in Egypt's western desert, there's this place called Wadi al-Hitan. It means the Valley of the Whales, and it's full of the fossilized remains of the earliest whales back from a time when an ocean covered the land. But even after the oceans pulled back, the freshwater stayed. And listen, we are not talking about small ponds here. Around 10,000 years ago, the body of water we now know as Lake Chad was Mega Lake Chad. It was a freshwater sea, bigger than all of North America's Great Lakes combined. Just try to imagine that amount of water in what is now a desert. It's incredible. So this green landscape, it wasn't a barrier separating North and Sub-Saharan Africa like it is today. It was actually a bridge that connected them. Humans flocked there. They built communities, they herded cattle, they created all this complex art in places that are now completely 100% uninhabitable. So that brings us to the crucial question: how on earth did this happen? Well, the answer isn't actually buried in the sand. It's written in the stars. The whole reason the desert decided to become a garden comes down to a simple cosmic wobble. Okay, so it has this fancy name, orbital precession. But really, just think of the Earth like a spinning top. Over a very long cycle, about 23,000 years, its axis slowly wobbles. Now, it doesn't change the tilt itself, but it does change which direction the axis is pointing. And that tiny little change has massive consequences for our climate. So here's how the chain reaction worked. About 10,000 years ago, this wobble tilted the northern hemisphere just a bit closer to the sun during its summer. More direct sun means more heat. All that extra heat over North Africa created these powerful low-pressure systems, which acted like a giant vacuum, just sucking in moisture from the Atlantic Ocean. This pulled the entire African monsoon rain belt way, way north, and suddenly it started raining on the sand. And it didn't stop for thousands of years. The transformation was incredibly fast. I mean, in just a few centuries, which is truly a blink of an eye in geological time, those lifeless sand dunes were completely anchored by the roots of grasses and trees. The Sahara just bloomed into this vibrant savanna. It was a true golden age for the people who called it home. But as they say, nothing gold can stay. That same celestial wobble that gave life to the Sahara would eventually take it all away. We obsess over the pyramids, but the story of the people who built them might have actually begun with a great exodus from this dying paradise. See, as the Earth's wobble continued on its 23,000-year cycle, the entire process just reversed. Around 5,000 years ago, the rains retreated back to the south. The lush vegetation died, the roots rotted away, and the wind took over once more. It was a slow-motion climate apocalypse, and it forced everyone to leave. And this leads to an absolutely fascinating theory. The people of the Green Sahara were forced to migrate towards the only reliable water source left, the Nile Valley. Archaeologists now believe this massive influx of people, who brought their sophisticated culture, their cattle, and their survival skills, was the very catalyst that kick-started pharaonic civilization. The end of one world was the spark for another. It's an incredible idea to think about, isn't it? The idea that one of history's greatest empires might have been founded by climate refugees. So, what do you think? Was the end of the Green Sahara the necessary trigger for the rise of ancient Egypt? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so let us know in the comments. Okay, so if this is all part of a cycle, it raises a pretty obvious question. When is the jungle coming back? Because this celestial mechanic, this wobble, well, it hasn't stopped. Right now, the Sahara is in its dry phase, just as it's been many, many times before. But the cycle of precession is absolutely relentless. The Earth is still wobbling, and the clock is ticking towards the next great transformation. Based on this cycle, scientists predict that in about 15,000 years, the monsoons will drift north again. The aquifers deep beneath the sand will refill, the rains will return, and yes, the Sahara will turn green once more. And really, this is the final, powerful takeaway. It's a reminder that our planet is not some static stage, but a living, breathing performance. What we see as permanent is so often just one phase in a much, much longer story. The Great Desert isn't a graveyard for a lost world. It's just a waiting room for life's inevitable return. If you enjoyed that deep dive into a lost world, make sure you're subscribed for more explainers just like this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.